What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 40 Ounce Hip Hop. Today we are cracking the top 5 with numbers 6 and 5 on the list. And, before we get into this, similar to one of our rappers that we're going to speak about today, gotta shout out to God for letting us see this day. Shout out to you, Michael, for being here. Shout out to the Easy Team. Shout out to my wife too. She's out there. I know you're supporting me doing this podcast, and that's because the woman of the world in my life, and this is the man we worship. This is the man I worship as in God. But the other artist that we're going to talk about today, he has a different kind of beast he worships. We kind of hinted at before, but we're going to get into that in a little second. But before we do all that now, I'm going to need y'all to grab your shorties. And you better damn sure have some 40s.
Better.
Because we are about to pour up on 40 Ounce Hip Hop. Let's get this shit. Besides that cryptic ass intro and that really had ass intro, I was getting that we're talking about Coloring Book and The Money Store.
Two extremely different sounding albums, for sure.
And if you got the beast, the beast I worship, of course, Chance is the holiest of the holies.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the once acid rapper turned Jesus snapper.
Yeah, I like that.
And Coloring Book with his project, the free album, the mixtape, the 2016 phenomenon, honestly, of a project, is what takes the number 6 spot on our list.
Yeah. Last episode, I hinted that we were going to be discussing the greatest mixtape of the decade, which Coloring Book is a mixtape. Like Kyle said, at times it just really feels like a free album. What I was trying to get at on the last episode, saying why in my mind it doesn't feel like a mixtape and it really does feel like an album, is just because like the amount of features on it made it feel like an album. The fact that acid rap really felt like the mixtape that put him on the map, and so this was the big hype leading up to a debut album. And then first and foremost, just the fact that this was immediately on Apple Music, and I'm pretty sure it's on Spotify shortly after. Like, a lot of times that for people, that's like the big separator between mixtape and album.
Facts, especially during those times before it. Honestly, I feel like he was a trendsetter in that regard for getting his mixtape, one of the few people and premiering his mixtape on such a grand scale on a platform which is still relatively in its infancy. I would say Apple Music, compared to like something that was Spotify or SoundCloud, or something that we're more readily associate with mixtapes, and I guess more underground hip hop releases.
Yeah,
but
it's like you had a choice. If you want to act like it's an album, go listen to it on Apple Music. If you want to act like it's a mixtape, go download it on DatPiff, because you can do it either way.
Yeah, I only get my stuff from LimeWire, and if I don't get a virus from it, I'm disappointed. Yeah,
exactly. So some background on Chance the Rapper before we take our deep dive into the album or mixtape Coloring Book. Had to catch myself there. So Chance the Rapper, real name Chancellor Bennett, of course from Chicago, Illinois. If you listen to his music, because he's constantly always repping it. And even now in the year 2020, he's still only 27 years old, which is crazy to think about. That means he was only 23 when this mixtape came out, and he was only 20 when his big blow-up project, Acid Rap, came out. It's pretty crazy to think about. He was only 20 when Acid Rap came out, and that's when a lot of people first found out about Chance the Rapper. He had some push behind him because the previous year he did the song with Childish Gambino on his mixtape Royalty, and I guess that kind of set him up, because then when Acid Rap came out, here's this guy that you don't know too much about, but then you see he's got Absol and Childish Gambino, and I think Action Bronson too is on there.
Oh yeah, Bronson on Nana.
Yeah. And then, so I mean, acid rap got some huge recognition, especially kind of like how we mentioned setting up Chicago rap. Like other guys from Chicago were really blowing up at the time too with it, and kind of elevated Chance the Rapper's popularity. And then if acid rap wasn't enough, he just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I mean, he had 3 years in between this album in 2016 and then acid rap back in 2013. And it's like in those 3 years, you'd think most people, if you wait that long to release music, people are gonna forget about you a little bit. But he only got popular. He made songs with Justin Bieber, appeared on Because of the Internet, Childish Gambino's album. He made the album Surf, and then a couple, yeah, and Donnie Trumpet, and then a couple months before this came out, he was on the classic song Ultralight Beam on The Life of Pablo. So that's one of the first things I think about with this album is how big he was because of acid rap, but then just how much bigger he got in the time in between his two major projects. I don't think I've ever seen that with a rapper where they're taking time off and they're getting more popular.
Yeah, man, he really was on a roll between acid rap and coloring book. The man has shared stages and well, first of all, let's realize how big acid rap was. 1.5 million downloads on DatPiff.
Wow.
For like back in 2013. So who knows what it is now.
Right, yeah. But
the man shared stages with Mac Miller, Pharrell Williams, Schoolboy Q. Because he was he worked with all of them. He was part of the MySpace relaunch. He was not headlining, but he was one of the main performers of Lollapalooza in 2013. He was, the project Acid Rap was put on Pitchfork's list, Complex list, like in their top 15s, and Complex top 4. And the man went on to share stages and made guest performances with people like Kendrick Lamar, Earth, Wind and Fire, Metro Boomin, Tokyo, Drum, Hiatus Coyote, reworked Kanye tracks for like songs like Family Matters. It's like he was getting love in these. It was on Saturday Night Live in 2015 before he even did the Ultralight Beam.
Yeah, before he did the second time, because that's the more famous performance. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was on a roll.
Yeah, and I think because of that,
on the Skrillex track.
Yeah, that's an elite tier of rapper popularity.
Yeah, back when people really gave a shit about Skrillex.
Yeah, I think when I think of albums that were hyped up leading up to its release, and then maybe within the week after its initial release, I think off the top of my head, like maybe To Pimp a Butterfly is the only album that I can think that had more hype leading up to it, just because of how big Kendrick Lamar was at the time, or throughout the whole decade. But the hype leading up to Coloring Book is unreal. Like, I don't think it can be understated. Just living through it, there was so much anticipation behind this album, with all this, like with everything that we mentioned leading up in the 3 years the release of this mixtape. It was unreal. I mean, do you agree that it's one of the most anticipated mixtapes of the decade?
Honestly, yeah, I definitely agree, because it was especially after he did the Ultralight Beam performance.
Yeah.
Like, because the project didn't even drop yet. So it was like, once he did that, and also, I think he learned how to branch out his notoriety and his like fame in a different way, in a different manner, so that with doing stuff like working with Skrillex, we're going on tour with freaking not yet, but collaborating with Malcolm Moore and Ryan Lewis at the time, and even going to the My Brother's Keeper Challenge initiative at the White House. Is like he was
I remember that,
yeah, along the sides of J. Cole and Janelle Monáe and Alicia Keys. Is like he was getting fans and getting notice from everyone, and people that usually wouldn't even bother to listen to Chance. Just like, oh, this is the acid rapper. but he was now. So, and on top of the crazy fan base that he had, it was nuanced in a sense, because he was doing this and it's all aligned with what he talks about and who he was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was incredible to see and incredible to live through, because you're sitting there thinking like, wow, I really hope he doesn't mess this up.
For real.
Like, how can you, and like, it's been 3 years, you start rocking 3 hats. He's like, okay. And people were going crazy for buying this 3 hat merch.
Yeah.
I'm like, before, like, as soon as the thing dropped, I'm like, okay, where's people? I'm seeing people in school rocking 3 hats, people at Walmart, yo, just a chance. I'm like, it was insane. Grown people, I've had people over double my age be like, hey, I really like that Angel song by Chance.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck is
even people who don't normally listen to rap, I think that's one of the ways that he got so popular, I think, is like, I used to make fun of, I guess, just as a gatekeeping rap fan or whatever, I used to make fun of people who were like, oh, I don't normally listen to rap, but I listen to Eminem. I don't normally listen to rap, but I like Childish Gambino and J. Cole or whatever. Like, the people who used to say, I don't like listening to rap, but I like J. Cole and Childish Gambino, those people became the, I don't normally listen to rap, but I like Chance the Rapper. And maybe back then I would have used that as a knock on someone, but I mean, to me, that just shows how...
pervasive.
Yeah, that's a good word. Like, no matter what your tastes are, you can find a way to get interested into his music.
Yeah, man. He was, and I think also with the direction he went in with Coloring Book, made it very palatable for most people, I would think. And people, so he's like, oh, I don't like rapping for all like the glorification of this and that. It's like, well, with Coloring Book, you don't really get that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you get a little bit of like songs like mixtape and whatnot, but for the most part, it's a pretty damn wholesome tape.
Yeah, it's such a...
Or like, oh, I don't want to hear all that cursing. I don't want to hear it's like, or I don't. There's not. It's just a bunch of sampling, no instrumentation. There's no live instrument. It doesn't take talented Corey to do that. It's... I'm like, he's singing, he's rapping, there's whole choirs in this.
Yeah.
What do you want him to do now? Gregorian chants? Like, is that what's gonna satisfy you? Does he need to recreate? Like, it's like he has a wide appeal with this.
Yeah, he's such an artistic guy, but on top of that, like you said, just to have an album, a project on a mainstream level like that, have this level of wholesomeness and just feel good and gospel-y and Christian messages and stuff like that. It was kind of new in some ways to listen to music like that for someone that popular.
Yeah, and the thing about it I also appreciate is that it wasn't cheesy.
Yes.
Even though it was refreshing. It wasn't. And yes, he has the Christian theme throughout this whole project, and it's you can't go pretty much without like more than 2 songs without him making a allusion to Christianity or his faith. Which some people, if you're not that religious, if you're not very religious, maybe kind of a turn off for you. But in my opinion, after listening to other artists in the field, this album's far from heavy-handed, and even if you don't agree with his views or you don't align with it sonically and how he delivers it and packages this, it is an experience to have, and it's a really enjoyable time to listen to, and it holds up well. Like, you could tell the effort and the craft that it took, and honestly, if you look at the production list, it's kind of hard for it not to hold up.
Yeah, some good producers on there for sure.
Yeah, man, he's got a army behind him. Even though he said he's no label behind him.
Yeah,
He's got a nice little army. Like, it's on the features on here. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, we have to get into the features list for sure when talking about this album. It's almost intimidating when the track list came out, as if you couldn't be more hyped up for the album. It just added more curiosity. I feel like when I first saw the track list, I'm like, how is this all gonna work together,
Exactly.
right? Because you have kind of like the radio guys like Young Thug and Future, and then Lil Yachty. I mean, I remember listening to One Night in Cold Lake, Minnesota, and I don't know, those songs blew up maybe 3 months before this mixtape came out, and like already Lil Yachty's on this project. And then you have 2 Chainz, and then you have a legend like Lil Wayne, and then something expected, you have the Chicago guys like Jeremiah and Saba and No Name, and then a legend, but the Kanye, he's now backed by Kanye, so you got the Kanye, which is a big deal but kind of expected, I guess. And then Justin Bieber is a little bizarre, but then you're like, okay, they worked in the past, but still Justin Bieber, I know he did a song with Travis Scott, but like still, like, wow, Justin Bieber's on a track too. And then just the most bizarre feature out of them all is Jay Electronica, because it's like that's a very exclusive club to be in, to get a Jay Electronica verse. I feel like before this mixtape came out, when I saw Mac Miller did a song with him, I was like, oh, that's weird. When I saw that Currency did a song with him, I'm like, oh, that's weird. But then I'm like, wow, on top of like Jay Electronica is on the same album that Lil Yachty is on. Like, I think that's what really puts it in perspective. Is
Honestly, the greater perspective for me is the same project that I hear Young Thug on. Young Thug and Lil Yachty trade bars. I can hear Jay Electronica hop on and just float over a song, over the same, within a 30-minute span. I'm like, dang, I just heard. Not only did I hear a good Thug and Yachty verse, but I heard a good Thug, Yachty, Saba, Justin Bieber, Tokyo, Knox, Fortune, Jay Electronica features within less than 30 minutes. My apologies.
unreal.
Span.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell? And they're still crazier like there's still even greater features. Not greater. Still, because that Jay Electronica, and that's top tier, upper echelon. Hey, bro, you
For sure. That's any time you blesses an artist with a guest.
That's
feature.
it's like getting a Daft Punk feature and you only released 2. Literally, you got like a Daft Punk feature, you got Electronic Dude, and you're like, oh yeah, I want to release 2 mixtapes.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's crazy. But it's like you have T-Pain, Kirk Franklin, Aaron Allen Kane, No Name, Ty Dolla $ign, BJ Chicago, and Anderson .Paak following all that in Future. It's like, oh, and the thing about all these features is that they work so well. All of them coalesce so well with the themes of the songs. It's just like, and nothing is even for a while, because I'm not gonna lie to you, I would be a hypocrite if I was, oh yeah, I liked every song when I first, like, no, because I hated mixtape. I'm not gonna lie to it, because I still don't like Chance's hook. Like, oh, I wanna care about a mixtape. I'm like, oh, Chance, please. Why don't you have? If you wanted to do this, have Thug do the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
But over the years, I like Thug and Yachty's parts on it. Honestly, Chance kind of was the weakest link on that to me, because he sounded more like, which I guess is ironic, because it's like a precursor to what I would get from the Big Day. But
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But besides that, like, even on that song, everyone else was really, everything was just great. Like, I can't. Usually I could complain, and seeing a list like this of features, it makes you question, like, okay, is the artist trying to cover up their weaknesses with, these features? Are they overcompensating for, like, lack of whatever artistic creativity, or are they overcompensating, like, that, okay, this isn't really necessarily my song, but it sounds like a song that would sound good on the project, so I'm just gonna have them kind of, it's like, are they trying to just, like, shoot like, throw darts at the board to, like, get a hit or something?
Yeah, I think
it's odd to, usually you see this, I'm kind of like, I say grows curious, but I was more concerned at the time, like, how's Chance gonna work with all of these people, and is it really gonna sound good, or is it just gonna sound like a bunch of shots in the dark, and just hoping one of them sticks.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about American Boyfriend by Kevin Abstract, I said that he used all the personnel that he had in his close group to his advantage by maybe making up for some things that he wasn't good at.
Yeah.
And that using that to enhance it. I think Coloring Book is similar. The only difference is that besides maybe, like, I mean, some of the features are actual. They have full verses like Young Thug and Lil Yachty and Jay Electronica and Lil Wayne and 2 Chainz. But a lot of the features are very tiny, like almost, they feel more like supplements. They're not really features. So like you mentioned T-Pain and Ty Dolla $ign and Rory and Anderson .Paak and BJ the Chicago Kid. I mean, that's a full length of great iconic rapper R&B guys from the decade, but then they're only used as background voices for the outro. Or then like Kanye doesn't have a verse, he's kind of just some supplemental vocals. Or I don't know, Jeremiah, his verse on
Summer Friends.
Yeah, on Summer Friends, it's really just like a 30-second outro. It's really not a verse. So I feel like that's the difference, is he's using all these features, and some of them are actual features, but a lot of them are just like supplements to the song.
Hell, Jeremiah, Francis and the Lights on Summer Friends.
Yeah.
It's like, it was essentially, because the song Friends by Francis and the Lights is Francis and the Lights, Bon Iver, and Kanye. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much a stripped down sample of that, if anything.
Like a part 2.
Yeah, pretty much to it. And even then, it was great. It sounds fantastic. And I think you really have. I think you are right. He used his resources to the best of his ability, like, because he has some anthems. He had when this dropped, he had the radio on lock with songs like No Problem.
Immediately, too.
Yeah, immediately. Dude was on Ellen DeGeneres with Lil Wayne and 2 Chainz, and got all these people, all these middle-aged women singing, "You don't want no problems." No problems. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, I go to the gym. I see this lady just, "You don't want no problems." I'm like, yo, this someone's grandma is vibing out to this dude from Chatham.
Yeah, I talk about hype for the album, but even just, I think hype has some carryover too. I always like to look at what the initial reaction was in the first 1 to 2 weeks after the immediate release.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, people were just going crazy over this when it came out. It was unavoidable to hear someone listen to it. Honestly, not hear someone listen to it.
So you're gonna hear No Problems. You might hear Summer Friends. You're probably gonna hear Mixtape if you want to get a little more ignorant. Angels is being everywhere. You want to get a little holier, sadder? Throw on Blessings or Finish Line. You want a smoke break? Throw on Smoke Break.
Someone jamming out to a little something poppy, you're gonna hear All Night or Juke Jam.
Yes.
Someone bumping that.
It's like, right, it had the vibes that everyone needed. It was a great showing of utilizing your resources, and it's honestly one of the greatest adaptations and I guess evolutions in sound for an artist over the last decade, because he really changed up because he has similar like Cocoa Butter Kisses on Acid Rap, it's like he has similar themes he tackles, but he really refined it, and I think also with better funding and backing, it kind of gives him a better canvas to kind of paint the picture that who is Chance and what Chance is feeling nowadays. And like, this is post LSD ridden Chance.
Or Xanax.
Yeah, Xanax ridden Chance. So it's kind of like, it's
post fatherhood, post Xanax. Well, not, I shouldn't say post fatherhood, but post having a kid.
Yeah, Chance.
He's still a father.
Chance is a deadbeat, but he's a great husband.
Yeah, he loves his wife.
Loves his wife.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who weren't in love with acid rap but had their minds changed about Chance the Rapper when this came out. I'm one of those people. I mean, I saw potential in him with acid rap because there were a few songs that I really liked, like Paranoia. I remember that was one of my favorites. But and just that new soulful Chicago sound he was bringing. But I wasn't in love with him or anything like that. But then when this came out, I was like, okay, he's convinced me now. Like I'm convinced now he is great. I saw the potential before, and there's nothing wrong with not being in love with an album and just seeing potential in it. I was like, oh, I think he can do something great later on. And then 3 years later, he takes his time working on an album, and then boom, there it is.
No, I definitely agree. It's a fine way, which it's what I hope, which this is, I really, 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 really hope. What Chance did with this is what Isaiah Rashad is going to do whatever the hell he drops next, because for the love of God, Sun's Tirade, it was a good project. That's why I got it.
And it's been 4 years since then.
Yes, it's like, bro, please do what Chance did. Take your time, get whoever you need to, drop something great. And I think that a lot of artists besides, I shout out Isaiah Rashad because I literally was just playing that today. I'm like,
right.
What? And I hope other artists could kind of learn from Chance. Like, granted, not everyone's gonna have the same opportunity and really privilege of working with all these people.
And to get more popular during that time off.
Like,
because I need to emphasize that's what was so bizarre, was not that he took forever, because a lot of people do that, but then people end up forgetting about them. But he took the time off and got even bigger.
Yes. It's like, no, not everyone's gonna have that privilege. But I think it is a good testament. It's like, hey, refine your craft and like do what you need to, and you will be rewarded. And like, if you really get if you take the time to curate that sound to exactly what you want, people are gonna respect it either way.
So, how do you think the legacy of this album, of this project, has changed in the 4 years since then? And for most of the projects we've talked about, I feel like it's almost an irrelevant question to ask, just because it's like, oh, it was great then, it's great now. But the difference is Chance the Rapper last year released one of the most disappointing projects of all time in The Big Day. And so I just want to know, has that hurt the legacy of this project? Like, revisionist history, I guess, is what some people might call it. I know you and I, we probably don't get affected by that, but do you think in the general public this album maybe gets under recognized now than it did 4 years ago?
You know, I don't think it will be under recognized. I think people will still acknowledge. I think people who lived through that time or were got hip to it relative to that time are still going to appreciate the project. But I fear for his legacy going forward, for younger generations looking back at him. Because then they're like, yo, this is the dude that has the big donut meme. This is the big disappointment guy. It's like
the dude who loves his wife.
This is the dude that loves his wife. He gets compared to like Logic before No Pressure. Shout out to No Pressure, Bobby.
Yeah,
it's like
the corny rapper.
Yeah, it's like you get all this flack, so I fear for people going back and like the future generations, like, heck, when his daughter is going through school, they're like, yeah, your dad sucks, but they only listen to Big Day, they ain't listen to like Coloring Book or something. Gotcha. Or Acid Rap. So that's my only fear with Chance's legacy with this project. But overall, I think people, for the most part, still like it. Or even like people that don't listen to Chance or still don't really listen to this project like that. But yeah, it was cool. But yeah, it was cool. It's like a universal, cool thumbs up.
Favorite tracks?
Yeah. My favorite tracks on this project are All We Got, because that intro was just, it pretty much set the stage for the whole project. It was the Kanye Chance collab that I expected. I expected more, like a bar trade-off, but it was perfect because it really just let Chance shine. Kanye literally it's almost like scat.
Okay.
It's like, no,
yeah.
Like, dude was just humming on some Cudi stuff. The chorus is great. It has this, it comes in hard with the distorted bass and during the chorus. Chance is honestly covering most of the topics that he would cover on the big day in 2 verses, which is hilarious. And he flowed really well. Everything was just great. It was a really cool tone setter. It sounded beautiful with the prismizer effects, with Chance being very energetic and very reminiscent of his acid rap days. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm going a different direction with my music, but I am still this guy. I can still bring that energy. It was really good. I really enjoyed that as an intro track.
Okay.
And then another song that I really like is Finish Line. And Finish Line / Drown, because it was just really, I love the switch up of it, because Finish Line was very uplifting, very gospel sound. It reminds me of the Sunday Candy.
On Surf.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot like that, and it's cool to see him implement this in a non-corny way, and also bring in people from his past, like Aaron Allen Kane and No Name, but then also infuse his other influences like a T-Pain and Kirk Franklin. And it sounded perfect synergy, likewise. Because Finish Line with T-Pain hopping in on that is almost like T-Pain on a gospel sounding song was something, an auto-tune with that was something I wasn't expecting in my 2016 bingo card, but you know what? It was pretty damn good. And No Name floated on the second part. Kirk Franklin in this choir, 1500 and up, is like, they're great. It was, that song really stuck out to me. And then, of course, how could I not put Mixtape? No, I'm just fucking with you.
I was waiting for it.
But actually, How Great, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'd probably say How Great. If it wasn't How Great, then I'm putting Juke Jam.
I can't fault someone for picking How Great when that's the one with the J Electronica feature. So
yeah, it's a really chill song. It's really good. The J Electronica feature is really great. It was kind of like a precursor. Looking back, revisions. Well, looking back, hindsight 2020, and it's like, oh, this is what we got with him and Hove on his latest project. But it was really cool to hear that, and it still sticks out to me to this day. Like, dang, that was great.
Okay. All right, that's 0 overlaps. So it's been a while since we've had
0
overlap. Yeah. So you said you were thinking about picking Juke Jam. I did pick Juke Jam. It's just a very cute song. I don't know how else to describe it, but
I wanted to pick it, but I'll be biased for picking it. The reason why I say that is because I've had some dope times with Juke Jam.
Okay.
So I'm like, and like, it's funny. I have funny ass memories associated with it, but I was kind of like, is it a better song? Do I revisit Juke Jam as much as I did back then?
Okay.
I don't revisit as much as I revisit How Great in those other songs.
Okay.
More than I did back then.
Yeah. Not the most straightforward rapping song on here, because a lot of it's kind of like singy rap, but still, that with just the themes of the young love, and then you got Justin Bieber, of course, on the chorus,
and Tokyo, which I didn't know I felt dumb for at least a year and a half. Didn't know. But yes, that's Tokyo on there, but I didn't really put it together. I'm like, oh, that's him.
The second pick of mine, I went with Angels, which was the only single for the project that came out. It came out almost a year before Coloring Book came out, I think, because I remember it being in like late 2015 maybe. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's probably the best rapping Chance has on the whole album. Just both verses are really nice, and then Saba on the hook. Definitely great rapping, but still with that cheerful, wholesome type sound that he makes very clear throughout the whole project. And then my third pick was Blessings, the outro.
Yeah.
That's probably, I don't know, maybe it's probably up there with one of my favorite Chance the Rapper verses of all time. Just ending the album off with just one verse I really like, and it's one of his best verses that he's ever written, I think. And then yeah, just ending it with that with that choir type outro that and just goes on for like maybe a minute and a half, but it's just a great way to close up a very religious, wholesome sounding album. And then I love the way that I just love that it's not this random choir. He was like, oh, let's make it a choir of Ty Dolla $ign's, Rory, BJ the Chicago Kid, Anderson .Paak. It's just funny too, because reading the features for the song, you're like, oh, when are they gonna come in? And it's like it comes in all in at once, so you can't really recognize them all at once.
Yeah.
But then you hear, are you ready? And you're like, oh, there's Anderson .Paak. Like he is the one with the distinguishable voice in there. And yeah, those are my 3 picks.
No, I definitely respect all those picks, because I think that's, but the reason I think of Blessings, because Blessings and Juke Jam were songs I used to play a lot when they first came out, but after the big day, Blessings, when I listen to Blessings now, I just get mad, because it's like, it's like Kanye's best prodigy. He ain't signed me, but he proud of me. I got some ideas that you gotta see. It's like, Chance, we did not need to see what the fuck was that.
Yeah, it's been 4 years, man.
It's like, and that's what you come back with, really?
Yeah.
Really, Chance? Chancellor, I'm gonna need you to calm down.
Mr. Bennett,
your brother. That was just, every time I listen to that song, I'm like, really, wow. But overall, great project. Absolutely recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, best mixtape of the decade. There you go. Number 6 on the list.
I made a reference to the beast that we worship, but that is, Stephon Burnett again.
along with
Zach
Flatlander
Hill.
and Zach Hill.
Yep. In the group known as Death Grips, with the album The Money Store.
Yes.
First commercial length studio album.
Yeah, debut album April 4th, 2012. So not too long after Ex-Military, which we did talk about as our number 9 pick a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny talking about Ex-Military without really hinting that we had Money Store. I know we kind of ran into a similar thing when we talked about Friday Night, or talked about 2014 Forest Hills Drive before talking about Friday Night Lights. But yeah, I mean, man, I don't even know where to start with this album. I guess I said I thought Ex-Military was Death Grip's best album from a rapping perspective, just from an MC Ride perspective, and I do truly feel like that. But I have a hard time saying Ex-Military is their best album because of the Money Store. And if it's not the rapping, I guess it's just the sound and the production is just it definitely more out there than Ex-Military, but it just works so well. I have to pick the Money Store as their best project.
Yeah, Zach Hill and Flatlander, they really did their thing on this project. Like, wow. Because it's funny, I think I mentioned in the Veteran episode how Peggy said he wanted the project to sound like the internet. In a sense, like emulates, like this is like the project of someone who grew up on the internet. Well, which is ironic because Death Grip's following project after the Money Store is No Love Deep Web.
Right.
But in my opinion, when I listen to the Money Store, it sounds more like the Deep Web, like what I would imagine the Deep Web has soundtrack. This will be it. And one of my favorite videos on YouTube is like is an AMV of this series called Serial Experience Lane, and it just has Hacker playing in the background. But with that, it's like it's the perfect thing because like, if you haven't seen it, the show is essentially about the mixing of pretty much reality and the idea of like individualism and what it means to be alive, but also this girl was getting these notes from this person that died, and that was on that like through her laptop, but she's kind of like the lines between the digital space and what's actually happening is kind of blurred. But the idea of that and that kind of distorted weird sense of unease but still intrigue is what I feel when I listen to this album, no matter when. It's just odd because yes, certain tracks on here are it gets me hyped. I'm like, oh, this is great. like a punk weight. I'm like, okay, it's ridiculous sounding, especially the beginning with the sample from. Don't let me get this wrong. Hold up.
Is it the Arabic one?
Yes, it is. I wonder. The song is Chawala. Something I will Cheba Wasila Hoa Hada. I remember. I'm like the first time you hear this, if you haven't heard the song, you're like, okay, what is this pitched up, super fast clip from this Arabic song? But then, next thing you know, the shit just hits the fan. And I feel like that sense of like shit hitting the fan is perpetuates throughout the whole project. But it's not in a sense of, it's not to the point of it's ad nauseum, it's more of I can respect it. Because, granted, they get weirder from here.
No doubt.
Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't listened to stuff. They get weirder from here. So, I guess looking back, it's like, this is pretty... It's tame, but it's tame in comparison, but it's still genre-bending and kind of like, oh, wow, this is breaking down barrier. And it breaks your expectation.
Yeah, because with ex-military, we talk about how they were able to match the abrasiveness of MC Ride's screaming, rapping. They matched that with really abrasive like production, right? But then on this, they changed their sound up, which as we've now come to learn, changing their sound up is what Death Grips is best at, right? They changed the sound up to make it not really abrasive production, but it's like kind of poppy almost, poppy electronic production juxtaposed with his screaming rap. And I think that's what makes this album stick out so much, is the way they switched up their sound and production, but still like kept the same rapping style.
Yeah, it's almost like because songs like Punk Weight, songs like Hustle Bones, it's like, because Hustle Bones, it's almost like glitch pop, but they took glitch pop mixed with punk rock with the screaming of the MC Ride, but on certain tracks. But he's still rapping his ass off. He still has some interesting bars, interesting lines that, like, Shawshank the Box can't be contained. Or on Blackjack, really one of my favorites, Get Got, like Red Light Flash, Dem Stop, I Smash, Braxis hydroplaying, and Braxis being Egyptian god of death and whatnot. And it's pretty interesting and cut lyrics, but you're mixing that lyricism and that kind of niche sound niche technique when it comes to rapping with electronic synths that could go with any sort of rave from like the 90s.
Yeah.
But then also something that is distorted and dark as like an Arca. It's interesting. It's something that you can't really find too many places. I think you can find now because it's already a thing, but at the time it's like, who else is doing this like on this level of quality?
One thing that I will always remember, I'll always identify with this album, is the fact that the Needle Drop gave it a 10 out of 10. And I know we mentioned Kids See Ghost earlier on in our series about Kids See Ghost getting a 10, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this was the first album he ever gave a 10 to. It might have been, but definitely it was the first rap album that he gave a 10 to. And it's almost silly to think about, but just with how big of a deal the Needle Drop has become, I guess.
Yeah.
I just remember it being such a big deal at the time. Like, it was almost like him giving it a 10 was more famous than the album itself. It felt like living through it.
Honestly, yeah, and it's been like a meme as like, oh, if it's not Death Grips or something like that, you're not gonna get like a 10.
Yeah.
It's not like, which is funny that if it was the first rap album he's given a 10 out of 10 to, it's almost cheating because this album's genres, like I said, kind of
ambiguous.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yes, it is a rap album, which is, I can understand anyone even listening to this podcast, but y'all put that over such and such, is like, yeah, but because of how, I guess, progressive the sounds are, and just and really enjoyment of like and how it ages, because the sounds honestly get weirder as time goes on, because and I'm saying just even from a like listening standpoint, because as the years pass, now it doesn't sound like top end production compared to what they can do now. So that weird sense of distortion and that weird and the song starts off with just like it sounds like someone's having a manic episode, or having like a pretty much a breakdown and sorts, but then the beat hits and then things just explode from there. And I think that sense of with the sirens blaring and the distorted and the almost like someone's muffled up your voice effect on MC Ride's delivery, it's pretty unique, I think, is like the best word you could say with it. Like I can't really, but it still encompasses this idea of rap. It's still like, despite all this weird sense of ambiguity throughout the project, you still know you're listening to a rap album. It's something you can't say for their later projects. Like, even for some people who try to blend the lines, it's similar to like a City Morgue, especially even with the latest project that dropped.
Toxic Boogaloo,
yeah. Which, shout out to Toxic Boogaloo. And it's, you still know at the end of the day it's rap. But I think with people like Death Grips and like a City Morgue or whatever, specifically the Money Store with this project, it blurred that line, so now we can accept more.
Yeah, I mean, we had way back when we were making the list, we had a really tough time with Death Grips, just debating what is and isn't rap, and then even within their own discography, what is and isn't rap.
Yeah.
And like I know we talked about on the ex-military episode how who are we to say what is rap, and what if they're just expanding what can be rap. And I still agree with that. I think ex-military, I think I have a very easy time calling ex-military a rap album. I definitely have a harder time calling the Money Store a rap album, but ultimately there are songs on here where he raps. I'd say probably at least half of them he actually raps, even if it's in his own unique way.
Yeah.
And at this point they were still labeled as an experimental hip hop group. I don't know if like Year of the Snitch or a lot of the really recent stuff, I don't know if I'd call it rap anymore.
I cannot call Year of the Snitch. Yeah, I can't call that. Or freaking, the first song that pops in my head is Hothead from them. And I was like, yeah, I can't call them a rap group. It's like, it's hard to, yes, they could, I mean, if they identify as it, yeah, we'll acknowledge them as that. But also Death Grips, one of the things about them is their kind of ambiguity, not only in their music and genres, but their online presence personas. It's like, they don't really do many interviews. They don't really Death Grips Online is a freaking meme, or that they even run with themselves. Like, oh, Death Grips is online, dropping this time, and disappear again. It's like, it's hard to kind of get a footing as to where you would stand, where one should stand on defining their discography.
Speaking of interviews, I feel like something essential for anyone who listens to this album is, I forget if it was like Fader or Noisy, I think it might have been, but someone did an interview with Death Grips around the time of this album, because I know it was after ex-military.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like the first time anyone had heard MC Ride speak, and it's just like, listen to it, because it's really essential if you end up if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't listened to Death Grips and you end up listening to Death Grips now, it's really essential to listen to, because MC Ride is not what you would expect, just to put it simply. It's just this super shy sounding voice. I just remember one of the questions was like, who are some artists you look up to? And he's just like, Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if I could really pick out anyone else. Like just the super shyest guy ever. And yeah, I mean, it really adds. If you thought they were bizarre before, just it adds to it.
It's like it's really interesting also with him saying that he likes that Jimi Hendrix is the inspiration, because if you ever watch like a video of their performance, like the performances, Jimmy was quite the sensationalist on stage. So MC Ride definitely, and the whole band, because Zach Hill on the drums, all of them go really, really hard and have some wild antics on stage. It's not like Frank Zappa like antics, but it's still pretty interesting. That duality like of him just being so reserved in like real life, and then letting out all this energy in the mic and the booth is pretty. I think it also just heightens the craft, and it heightens like the product. Like, yo, this is coming from that guy. Like, this dude that he's barely over 6 decibels right now is going to blow your car speakers out in like 3 seconds.
Yeah. Does it feel weird to you that this is such a iffy sounding album or whatever? It like iffy in many different ways, like, oh, what genre is it, or like what are all these new sounds? It's such a weird album. Yeah, it was a no doubter top 5 album for you and I. That's what I find so funny about it.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I think it's kind of like, it's like being in it's like trying I don't want to say a sport. It's like trying something like a new food that like you don't know what it is, but you're like, I don't know what that is, but it was good, so I want it again. Okay. It's kind of like, it's like someone just telling you, hey, try this. And it's like, dang, this looks disgusting.
Yeah, what kind of meat is this?
This is meat. I don't even know that's meat. That might be gelatin. Is that, I don't know. Is that algae? I don't know. But it tastes delicious. It smells kind of good. I kind of want some more. I don't know what it is, but I want some more. And I definitely will come back here for this. That's how I kind of see it as, you know, or I consider it to like a mixed drink, or like a punch. It's like, you know what's in the punch, but it'll get you lit.
For sure. Sometimes I worry. I shouldn't say worry, but I feel like back when this came out and Death Grips was more strictly labeled as hip hop, this got more recognized as one of the best albums in hip hop. And I mean, this came out very early on in the decade. But sometimes I wonder, like now, 8 years later after the decade's completed, if it's gonna get that same amount of recognition now that the band, even though they were what they were at the time, but the band since then has kind of strayed away from more hip hop sounding type albums. I wonder if it's kind of making the album not as appreciated within hip hop as much anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Because it's kind of like, do they even, if the band doesn't recognize it as much or like claim it as much as they once did, or I guess promote it is the best word for it, then will it fade from memory? And which I don't think it would, but will it get, because they're not promoted, they're not like identified or associated within the cultural, I guess, zeitgeist. No one's gonna be like, they're not gonna be the first thing to come to mind, like, oh, progressive hip hop albums. I'll probably say someone in 2017 be like, veteran. They ain't gonna think like Death Grips. You know. Yeah. Or also they're like, oh, it's more powerful. And I hate making that comparison to Peggy and Death Grips. I apologize to JPEG Mafia right now because I hate that. But it's like, I'm saying that because people will come up to me and recommend, like, oh, you should listen to JPEG. And I'm like,
what do you think I've been doing the past 2
years?
years?
Like, what do you think I've been doing this past 3 years? Like, do you have anyone else you want to listen to? Like, there's no one else that comes to mind that makes music like that's different than what you usually hear. Yeah, really, just Death Grips and JPEG. Yeah, that's it. It's like, I think, but we associate JPEG because he is I am a rapper. You know, that's the big distinction. And it also helps his legacy with hip hop, like a Danny Brown or like a or even like an LP. Like LP's Cancer for Cure. Like the way some of those sounds on that are very well. Some sounds on that kind of remind me of some stuff from Zach Hill's solo stuff. So I think that pretty much covers up Death Grips.
Yeah, I agree.
3 favorite tracks, man.
Yeah, so whenever I have like, oh, these are no doubters for me or slam dunks, sometimes I feel bad because it makes it sound like those are the only 3 tracks on the album worth listening to. That's definitely not the case. Like, it just means if it's an album that's been out for 8 years, I've had plenty of time to know which ones are my favorites. That's all that means. But The Money Store by Death Grips is a funny one for me because it's really there's not too many songs that I listen to individually on The Money Store. Even on Ex-Military, there are songs that I listen to individually all the time. But The Money Store is one of those albums that I listen to in full always. I've never been a kind of guy who just listens to my favorite tracks. So this was a harder one. This was one of the tougher albums for me to pick out my favorite tracks. And I really, none of them were no doubters for me. So I really had to re-listen to it a couple times to narrow it down to 3. And I think ultimately I went with, it's funny, I even have 4 written down here because that's how much of a hard time. So right now, I'm just going to make a quick call and narrow it down to 3. I'm going to go Get Got, I've Seen Footage, and The Cage. And basically every other track on here is like an honorable mention for me just because none really stick out above the other. Every song I enjoy a lot. I'm going to say The Cage, I don't know, maybe my favorite beat on the album, and that itself is a tough thing for me to say because every beat on here is fire. But I just love, you just listen to the first 30 seconds of it and the way it just builds up with all the I'm not even going to imitate all the whooping, yes. But it builds up definitely. It slaps. Get Got, that's probably the most popular song off the album, I think. It's the opening track, and definitely one of the nicer rapping ones because he doesn't scream it's more more actual rapping than screaming rapping, and I think a lot of people enjoy that. And of course, the way the hard-hitting electronic beat comes in with the chorus is great always. And then I've Seen Footage really isn't a rap song at all, but man, just the beat throughout, and then just talking about how he's desensitized by all the disturbing stuff in the world. It's so weird because he's still doing the screaming, but it's extremely poppy sounding beat. It reminds me of I Love It by Icona Pop, is that their name? But I don't know, the song it's like, I don't care.
Yeah, it is.
I love it. The beat reminds me of that, but even better than that. But I love the I Love It song too. That's the song that gets me hyped in the gym whenever it comes on the radio speakers. But I've Seen Footage. I love that song. And then it kind of coined the term noided for like I'm paranoid, I'm noided. Yeah. It coined that term for Death Grips, which has been iconic since then. And then the classic music video where, I don't know, maybe 5 pictures per second just flashing across the screen, the whole video, just random stuff. Yeah, those are my 3. I'm happy with those 3.
What was your 4th?
The 4th that I wrote down The Fever also, which is the 2nd track. That's another one where I love the transition from the beat during the rapping into the chorus, how it changes. Is that something they do throughout the project?
Yeah, that Siren, it sounds like your it sounds like a nuclear reactor meltdown is occurring and someone's trying to get out the building. Honestly, I remember the first time I ever heard that song. Actually, I remember my little brother was playing Sonic Adventure Battle 2.
Okay.
It's the scene where like Shadow escapes the facility. I was like, I'm just literally just watching him play this as I'm listening to The Fever, and I'm like, this goes along perfectly. Mm-hmm. Why does this actually make sense with this project?
That's hilarious.
I guess the edginess of Shadow matches Death Grips' sound in the weirdest way. But I definitely, The Fever was my fourth too. That's a funny thing.
Like your honorable mention.
Yeah,
one? Okay.
remember I told you like my third and fourth were flipping around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my fourth. My top three though are Get Got, System Blower, and then I like Hacker a lot.
See, with Hacker, I almost wrote down as like my fifth one, but it's the last track on the album. So at that point, I already had the 4 written down. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm not putting Hacker.
Yeah, because I had the Fever and Punk Weight tied, but man, Get Got. It's just a crazy intro track. It's a great track on its own. It's standing out. It's really ridiculous sounding. It's and I say ridiculous sounding in the best way possible. It's quite the genre. It's quite the genre bender and quite the hype track. But not in the sense of like MC Ride necessarily. Honestly, MC Ride kind of brings it's almost similar to like a manic episode where someone's having like some sort of disassociative experience with reality, but they're just speaking through it. But because the song's talking about like getting chased and whatnot, but the sense of it's ridiculous in the sense of the production. That's how you choose to start a project, for one, but two, the crazy electronic synths and the siren sounding and the sense of urgency that is marching throughout the track is honestly perfect for me. Like it doesn't wane. Every time I hear the track, it still hits me with that sense of like, don't get got. Like it's a weird feeling that it builds up with it that I can't complain. It's always gonna stick out to me. And then System Blower it kind of is similar to, it kind of reminds me of the ex-military days.
Yeah, I see
more
that.
so. And I love the beat breakdown for like it came to blow your system. You know what I'm saying? The way it sounds like the audio and the sample and everything is just like imploding on itself. And then it has another visceral explosion, like with Flatlander's production, and it is ridiculous. I mean, MC Ride sounds, granted he is yelling, but it's not necessarily overbearing. It sounds befitting for the track, and I just love the heavy emphasis on distorting the sample and like, yeah, we came to blow up your system. And this is the sense when you listen to the track is almost similar to when you take some food and you put it in like a food processor and you hear that breaking down and like everything going on within it. That's what I feel like I'm listening to on System Blower, but the result, similar to if you process your food or do whatever, it's still something that you something beneficial, nutritious for the soul.
Here you go.
So it's kind of odd to like that song would give me that sense of feeling. And then Hacker I kind of like encapsulates the whole idea and the theme of this electronic distortion, this kind of deep web. It was a good prelude to No Love Deep Web, and for me, what I associate with Death Grips, this melding of electronic sounds that have pop influence, that have old house influences, that have something I could hear from, like even like I know your first 3 numbers. It sounds like something I could hear from like an old rave, like an old like jet set radio type shit.
Even like, just like a 70s rock band or something, I could see having a chorus like that.
Yeah, man. It's and also it has one of my favorite lines in Death Grips history. It's just it's a prodigal, fuck that, nautical, teaching bitches how to swim.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, that is one of the funniest and most unexpected lines I was like, when I was going through this project. I'm like, what? And it becomes like the second bridge of the whole song. Like, teaching
bitches how to swim.
Not backstroke through your K-hole. And also the references to K-holes, which is really interesting. Is like the which is like ketamine, tranquilizers, K-holes. But yeah, man, it was. I love that song, and I think it's the perfect amalgamation of blending, and kind of like them say, hey, it's only going to get weirder from here. We're in your area, we're in your ear now. It's gonna just get weirder from here now.
Yeah, Hacker, I had such a hard time not picking Hacker. So I'm just gonna give it some extra love on top of you giving it love. So yeah, I mean, the chorus is probably one of the more famous Death Grips choruses, just from the when you come out your shit is gone to I'm in your area to I know the first three numbers, then going into the teaching bitches how to swim, which is one of the Death Grip lyrics that gets memed a lot for sure. And then like actual bars that he raps on top of that saying Gaga can't handle this shit, which I think is like poking fun at people calling Lady Gaga experimental whatever, and he's like, well, wait till you listen to Death Grips.
Yeah.
And then when he says soon your crew will be serving sandwiches named after me, I'm not even sure where he's trying to get at with that, but it's just hilarious.
Even the freaking like the cray ultra contrarian like
yeah.
Having conversations with your car alarm. That's such a
yeah.
You come out, your shit is gone. It's just such a funny like, oh, we're having conversations with your car alarm. So with Burmese babies under each arm, it's like, what the fuck are you talking?
Yeah, definitely one of the probably the wildest song lyrically on the album for sure.
Definitely, but it was definitely a standout. But even the freaking Fight Club reference was funny. Like you speak of us in certain circles, you'll be dethroned or detained. Like very odd, but still it fits very well. And also how it flows into like the third bridge, like gone, like you be detained and everything gone. It's pretty dope. It's a great song. I think this album, I hope it, like you said, I hope it doesn't lose its credibility or lose that association with hip-hop culture over the years due to Death Grip's evolving discography and how it's like further distancing itself from, I guess, traditional rap, or like what most would consider rap. So I hope that it still has that longevity and still actually makes it through, you know?
Put yourself in the year 2012 when you listen to this, because I don't know, times were different, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. That's the only way to do it, man. I can't wait for the next episode, to be honest with you.
Albums 4 and 3, it's going to be unreal to talk about. I don't know how we're going to keep that down to an hour, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Yeah, right. But I hope all you enjoyed the episode. Hope everyone, finish your shorties, finish your 40s, finish your nights, or your day. Start your day. I don't know. It's a good... Take a ride, listen to this podcast, do something.
Yeah. Fold some laundry and listen to it.
Yeah, fold some laundry and argue with us on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I hope everyone had enjoyed the times, and talk to y'all next time.